color me and the rest of the internet surprised that Hollow Knight Silksong has finally released. What was just supposed to be a mere DLC for the game Hollow Knight that turned to its own release game 7 years ago. So it was in development for 7 years before they finally released it. Everybody thought this was just going to be something that kind of waited in the wind until it eventually got forgotten about. But no, Silksong is actually here and at a surprising cost of $20. Now, Hollow Knight is a great Metroidvania, though I replayed it and I have less of a good feeling about it after replaying it. The map's poorly designed. Silksong now has shocked everybody once more before they've even got to play it, because while Hollow Knight was $15 made by a very small team, Silksong was also made by a very small team, but it took them 7 years to develop it, and they are charging only $20 for the game. A shockingly small amount given how much hype there has been for the game, how long it's been in development. People are thoroughly shocked to find this out. And then, of course, game journalists have to come in and remind you, you don't hate them enough. That's right, journalists are here crying that Silksong is too cheap, claiming that it's going to harm all the poor indie developers, but that's a cope. No, what they're upset about is this really does just embarrass AAA studios. Because if Silksong can give us all of this for $20, why the hell are we paying $80, $90, $100 for AAA games that give us nothing? And on top of that, this game is overwhelmingly positive on Steam with 500 reviews, and every single negative review I found was a joke comment. There wasn't a single legitimate negative review of this game. The only one I saw was, thumbs down, it's full of bugs. But if you watch the trailer, it's because every single character in the game is a bug. But websites like Eurogamer have come out and said that this is going to put shame on other indie developers, make them feel pressured to lower the cost of their game or whatever else. So, before going further, like, subscribe, and let's get into that. But before breaking down just how upset Silksong is making these people, being game journalists, let's just real quickly see how this game is doing right now. So it launched earlier today, it has 90% positive reviews on Steam, and it is currently has 109,000 players. Wait, this game's only been out for an hour. Hold up. Hollow Knight's... Wait, I'm sorry, I didn't know this. Silksong's only been out for 1 hour, and in 1 hour, this indie game has amassed 111,000 players. Nearly 112, and holy Christ. I can't tell you how embarrassing this is for every other company. Remember, the journalist favorite game Concord only managed to amass like 5,000 players during its open beta. I cannot believe how well this game is doing. And let's be very clear, the price tag is a major component. Now, I saw a lot of comments saying how they would gladly pay $40. I'm going to buy Silksong after this only because it's $20, because I'm not entrenched in the hype enough to pay $40 for it, but if it's $20, I'll buy it. But like I said, not everybody is a good enough person to understand that this is a fantastic move. Now, Eurogamer has to get a little upset because it's so cheap, the price is a problem for other indie games, devs and publishers weigh up on its impact. Now, Team Cherry announced the $20 price tag alongside Silksong's 4th September release date, which is today, only a couple weeks ago, and it came out an hour ago, as of recording this video. Scores of comments on Blue Sky and X in reaction to Silksong's date and price announcement say as much. Actually, underpriced, said one user on Blue Sky. You guys are nuts for this at $20, said another. And you're going to spawn a week of discourse with that price announcement. You know that, said another. Oops, ignore that last one. Now, I was going around and I looked at the Blue Sky stuff as little as I want to be on Blue Sky. And all of them were not saying that the price is too cheap for what they were getting, or that it was problematic. No, what they were saying is, these people wanted to support Team Cherry so much that they wanted to pay more than $20. It wasn't that they were worried about the effect it would have, it's that they wanted to give the studio more support for how much they love Team Cherry. And Team Cherry is a fantastic studio, to be clear. In fact, one of the most common lines I was seeing on Blue Sky were people saying that they're going to buy this on every device they own, just to maximize how much revenue Team Cherry earns. And if you really want to support them that much, over on Steam you can buy the soundtrack for Silksong for $12. The soundtrack for the game is almost as expensive as the actual game. But also, who cares about owning soundtracks on Steam? Silksong honestly should cost $40, and I'm not even joking, posted developer RJ Lake, who worked as a composer in I Am Your Best and is directing Rhythm Adventure Unbeatable. I won't go as far to say it's bad, but it will have effects, and not all those effects are good. RJ believes Silksong's price will distort players' views about what $20 indie game can and perhaps should offer. With other indie teams can afford to take several years to make a game after all. Similarly, if they did take that long, which teams could afford to ask only $20 or £20 upon release? Would it cover all that work? Not even has the diamond-encrusted safety net that Hollow Knight provides. Now, I hear where they're coming with this. I paid $20 for Silksong and I got a ton of content. Why'd I only get 5 hours of content from this one? Well, let's be entirely honest. The biggest problem that indie markets have is marketing. People are afraid to buy indie games in part because they don't have the quality control. Now, yes, AAA games are terrible, but they're reliable. AAA games are like McDonald's. You know exactly what you're going to get, and might be a little disappointed, but it's probably going to fill you up, especially if you don't already play indie games. Playing indie games is stopping at a food truck in the middle of the highway and seeing whether or not they have good food. Are you going to get food poisoning, or are you going to find the best burger of your life? You never know. And that's the real issue with indie games. It's a scary market for people who don't play games. So pricing it fairly, while yes, it might make some people stinted as to how much they think $20 should go, at the same exact time, it's going to encourage a lot more people to be willing to even try indie games. Like, I know there are people who Hollow Knight was their first indie game, and because of they've played games like Ori, they've played Blasphemous, they've played a million other indie games because they were introduced to the concept from Hollow Knight. Theoretical concerns turned into real concerns not long after, when an indie developer who had been planning to charge $20 for their game took to X to ask people what they should charge now. Now that Silksong was doing the same. I can't afford to give it away for free, the Bestie Art Games developer of Lone Fungus said. Hearteningly, most of the replies I read, there are more than 1,000, encouraged Bestie Art Games to stick to their original price. But as with the games hurriedly moving their release away from Silksong, Lone Fungus seemed to be far from the only indie game affected. And here's the beautiful thing about a $20 price tag. $20 goes a long way, and $20 can get you a wide range of things. The real problem when it comes to pricing isn't necessarily how much money for how much content, it's how many games you can buy at once. So if I get 10 $20 games in a year, as opposed to 10 $80 games, there's a major difference. I will gladly spend $20 on a game that might not be worth playing, only because it's really cheap. The other thing we have to realize is a lot of indie games get bought in mass during sales. So, for instance, a lot of people are going to wait to buy Silksong until they can get it for at least $15. Tukana, the developer of successful and wonderful tie-laying puzzle game Dorfromantic, that's a terrible name, delayed the release of the new game Starbirds because of Silksong, moving from 4th September to 10th September. And co-founder Zui Zhao now tells me that games as yet announced price has been affected too. And that's not an issue that Silksong is moving release schedules. That's what games are supposed to do. When targeting a release date, you should be targeting a time period with very little competition. This is not a new thing. Indie developers avoid release dates that have AAA releases coming out at the same time. You're not going to release a game when Cyberpunk 2077 came out. This isn't an issue with Silksong, and I don't know why they're pretending like it is. This is just an issue with releasing something into a saturated market. And as previously discussed, the fans don't mind paying $20 for a game that's less valuable than Silksong. They're just happy to only be paying $20 for Silksong. When people were expecting a $40, $50, $60 price tag, they're not going to complain when it's $20, and it's not going to stilt their view as to what $20 can get them. But even companies as robust as Devolver have felt the presence of Silksong. The publisher was one of the first to move their release of its game Baby Steps out of the way from 8th September to 23rd of September. We felt the same media and influencers who would be drawn to Baby Steps would inevitably and understandably prioritize Silksong, and we felt that would overshadow the glory of Nate falling down the side of a mountain. Devolver CEO and co-founder Graham Struther explains to me. And yes, that's going to happen. If somebody announces a blockbuster, you don't release your indie title. That's common sense. That's pure market force. And yes, it sucks that they had to delay their game by 2 weeks, but ultimately it's going to be the best for the game. Because after Silksong, we're going to have a lot of people who are ready to play more indie games, looking to play more indie games, and Silksong realistically shouldn't take more than 2 weeks to beat for most people. Mike Rose, founder of indie publishers No More Robots, says pricing is a fascinating and tricky thing to manage. He'd long been an advocate for higher prices. He tells me because it leaves room for discounts and down pricing as games ages. But recently, he adds, I think the economy for games has been shifting, and people who aren't actually releasing games don't see it or realize. Well, yes, games are shifting. People are becoming infinitely more trusting of expensive games. They don't want to buy expensive games anymore because they know they're not going to get their value. A lot of people are waiting for sales, but if you put your game out there at a sale-friendly enough cost, people won't wait for the sale to buy it. There are games that I'm not buying because they cost $25, and the moment they dip below $20, I'm going to be getting the game. And no, raising the cost of indie games is not going to have the effect that you think it will. Yeah, it'll help some indie games get a lot more money, but what you're really going to be doing is just pricing out most of the audience. Sure, you might get better sales during an actual sale. So for instance, there's a game that I have in my wish list, Berserker Die. It's a $4 game, and the only reason I haven't bought it is I don't feel like paying $4 because it doesn't look like it's worth it. It frequently goes on sale for $3.50 something, which is not a big enough sale to justify adding it to my cart and purchasing it, but it's a cheap game either way. So sure, you do have the argument of percentage of sale, but at the same time, if your game is cheap enough, people will just buy it whenever they want to, instead of waiting for the sale to come. People have less money now and are buying fewer games, Rose says, so you don't have to set yourself up to hopefully be that one game they buy when they do have money, and if you are a higher price, there's now actually a bit of off-putting. Budget co-op climbing sensation Peak is a great example of how things going the other way. He says, part of the reason that game did so well was the crazy low price. It's definitely making us rethink our pricing for our upcoming games. Yes, if you charge only $10 for a game that encourages playing with friends, 4 people are going to buy Peak and play it together. You're going to encourage people to spend lower money to get the game of high value. Damian Martin tells me there was an extensive discussion about Citizen Sleeper 2's price, and it jumped from around £16.50 to £21 to reflect it being a bigger game, to account for inflation and because of how other games were currently priced. All things I'm sure Team Cherry is taking into account when pricing Silksong 2, but there wasn't any negativity around Citizen Sleeper 2's price when it launched earlier this year, not that Damian Martin noticed. I don't think most people notice the price unless it's really out of step with the market, Damian Martin tells me. That doesn't mean people don't make buying decisions based on price. They obviously do, but I think they do that without judgment or comment. They just decide to buy or not. They don't complain unless it's a big disparity. So obviously most people complain about the price of AAA games because they're all egregiously priced between $80 to $100. That's a ridiculous price tag. But if you're on the scale of $15 to $30, you're probably not going to have any comments. Now, there are some $30 games that are really not worth it. And you will have people complaining if that's the case. But if it's an expansive game, people have no issue paying only $20 for it. And here's where we get a little bit of the mask off for Eurogamer, somebody who just loves to suck up to the big corporations and the mainstream game studios. Here's a game being treated like the biggest of AAA blockbusters, except it's not. And I think that's where some of the pricing confusions arise from. That's why people think the price is low compared to the AAA games that sell for $80, says Bram Van Lith, co-founder of Game Drive NL, a company which helps indie devs price and sell their games. Hype is warped perception of what Silksong actually is. And that's why they're upset about this. They're angry because Silksong isn't embarrassing or harming indie games. No, they're upset because, like Baldur's Gate 3, Silksong is disrupting AAA studios. It is becoming a major embarrassment for the pricing of AAA studios compared to the quality of the game. Silksong appears to have no performance issues from anything I've seen. Silksong appears to have great gameplay, appears to have a lot of content, and is only $20, while also looking phenomenal at the same time. Well, what's your excuse, Ubisoft, for making one of the worst releases and charging $80 for Assassin's Creed Shadows? And let's not forget, when games like Peak or Baldur's Gate 3, all these other major indie releases, or smaller studio releases, Baldur's Gate was a AA, not a single A. When these games come out, the first thing journalists like to do is they want to complain about how this is going to impact the standards of players. And so this is a very subversive way to sneak in the idea that we need to be more expecting of less valuable games because providing too much value is just too good. We had several articles come out when Baldur's Gate 3 came out, shaming the game for just being too good for the players. because it put AAA studios to shame. Similarly, this is being used as a Trojan horse to suggest that games should be more expensive anyway, to allow for AAA studios to charge more, as well as encouraging more indie studios to outprice their audience. And outpricing is a major thing. As Eurogamer continues, they definitely could have gone $25. No More Robots Mike Rose agrees. But this way they are essentially cementing Silksong as being a gigantic success before it even launches by making it a steal. So I don't think Team Cherry is wrong to go $20. If I had been pricing it, personally, I would have been on the fence between $20 and $25, but given the state of the industry now, it's very possible I would have also fallen on $20. The more interesting question, Brom Van Lich chimes in, is would the game be more successful asking for $20 or $30? What he means is, would Silksong make more money if it's sold at a higher price point, or will the extra quantity it sells at a lower price point more than make up for it? It's an interesting question, but it's not something I think Team Cherry is primarily concerned about. And going back to the SteamDB numbers, I just don't think it matters. So many people are buying the game, are playing the game right now. So many people have said that they're going to buy it on everything. I saw somebody saying they're going to get it for their Xbox, their PC, their Nintendo Switch, and their PlayStation, just to support Team Cherry as much as possible. So because it's so cheap, people are buying multiple copies. You have people who are willing to buy it without needing to wait for a sale. The $20 price tag is pricing very few people out, whereas a $30 price tag would price a lot more people out. If it was $30, I wasn't going to buy it. Because honestly, I don't think it's going to be worth the hype. I'm very hesitant about it. But because it's only $20, I'm probably going to get the game. But because it's such a good value, because it's such a phenomenal release, and because it is shaking the foundation of the gaming industry just for existing, game journalists have to come out and try to denigrate it. And they can't denigrate it based on its gameplay or its quality, because it's all there. Though in a few weeks, expect the Silksong is too hard and games should have a difficulty modifier articles coming out of Kotaku. But it's undeniable. The game is fantastic looking. It has a great price point, and people are going to thoroughly enjoy this game. Except for a DSP, who can't enjoy any game. And it just proves, once again, you don't hate game journalists enough. But that's pretty much all I've got. Let me know in the comments if you guys are going to play this game. What do you guys think about it? And I will see you guys on the next one.